If you've ever quoted a source directly using the author's words and just thrown the author's name and year in there willy-nilly, you're probably missing something your professor is looking for. I'm Dr. Jones, and direct quotes are one of the most common mistakes that I see. By the end of this video, you'll know how to quote a short quote and cite it properly, a website that does not have page numbers, and a longer block quote. And you'll know how to do it well every time. Direct quotes work differently than paraphrasing. Since you're using someone's exact words, APA requires an exact location. For example, here is a short quote. We call a short quote something that's under 40 words long. And the incorrect version is something that I see a lot. Diaz, 2021, explained that reading aloud to children significantly improves both vocabulary acquisition and long-term retention. The person who is doing this is doing it partially correctly. They did a great job putting the quotation marks there, but there's no page number. Since this is a direct quote, not something paraphrased, that page number is required. On the right-hand side, you see the correct version. Diaz, 2021, it starts the same way. The only difference here is at the very end, they put the page number. They put the quotation marks right there, parentheses, page 27, end parentheses, and then the period. Sometimes I see people who will put a period right at the end of the quote and then also at the end of the page number. Sometimes people forget to put a space in between the P and the 27. And there are a lot of little technical things to do here. So quotation marks, parentheses, P, period, space, 27, and parentheses, and then the period. The period goes at the very end of the citation. Now, what happens when you are using a website? I just gave an assignment to some of my grad students this summer where they are doing a lot of work looking at technology, and they are worried about how to cite things appropriately when they're looking at a website. What you do here is use paragraph numbers. So the incorrect version on the left-hand side, remember, this is a made-up source, so please don't go looking for Diaz 2021. They're trying to do this correctly. According to Diaz 2021, quote, digital reading habits are reshaping how children engage with narrative structure, end quote, and then just a random 4. There's no page number when you're looking at a website. So what is 4 actually representing? On the right-hand side, you see how to do this correctly. According to Diaz 2021, digital reading habits are reshaping how children engage with narrative structure. End quotes, parentheses, para to stand for paragraph, 4, end parentheses, and then the period. So what you're doing is you're counting paragraph numbers from the top of the website to tell the reader exactly where this quote falls. All right, now what happens if you have a very long quote? So my side note here is a writing thing, not necessarily an APA thing, but APA does recommend, being concise with your writing. I recommend using as few long quotes as possible. Professors tend to appreciate when you're paraphrasing your work because it shows that you're thinking about this in your own words. But every once in a while, you do have a quote that's just amazing and you really want to represent the author's words. So I get it. Here's how you would do that correctly. So the incorrect way looks actually very correct. Diaz 2021 argued, one of the best things parents and early childhood educators can do is read to young children. When children are exposed to consistent, high-quality read-aloud sessions from an early age, they develop stronger phonological awareness, richer vocabulary networks, and an intuitive sense of narrative structure. Again, this is a false source. This is a made-up source. Please don't go looking for it. But they wrap it up with what looks to be very correct. End quotes, page 52, period. However, Most professors who read papers for long enough can tell when there is a quote that's a little bit too long. So then they go to Microsoft Word and they go to the word count feature, and they can tell that this is a quote that is actually 44 words long. All right, so here's how you would do it below. Diaz argued the following. You put a colon here to introduce that quote. Then you drop down below. You indent the quote, the whole quote, when children are exposed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You notice that there are no quotation marks here with a block quote. That's actually very correct. With a block quote, when you indent it, you're showing the reader that that's where the quote starts. So you don't need the quotation marks like you did with a quote that just was, 12 words long or 25 words long. So you write the entire direct quote, and then you put a period and then the page number. Sometimes I've told students to think about all the rules for the short quote and then to do almost exactly the opposite for a block quote. You know how I told you to put quotation marks and quotation marks were required? Forget that for a block quote. Do the opposite. You know how I told you to put a period after parentheses when you were doing a short quote? Yeah, forget that. Put the period before the parentheses when you're using a block quote. So in a way, if you can master the short quote, you can also master the block quote. Period, parentheses, page 52, end parentheses. All right, to wrap up, short quotes need a page number in parentheses, and the period goes after the parentheses. Websites, you need to provide the location of your direct quote using a paragraph number, not a page number. And block quotes, quotes that are 40 plus words long, you do almost the opposite of what you do with your short quotes. You indent, you don't use quotation marks, you put a period and then the parentheses with the page number. If this was helpful, please subscribe, and also please provide some ideas in the comments so I know what kinds of videos you might be looking for. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.